humbly come before you with thanks and praise. We thank you for all the blessings of this life. And we thank you for allowing us to be free citizens in a free country and to address the concerns and the issues of our citizens here in Goochland County. We ask you to bless our county and its administrators, our citizens, bless our state, our country, and our troops overseas protecting our freedoms. This we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Nice job, John. Okay, the minutes of the last meeting have been distributed. Everyone have a chance to take a look. Any additions, deletions, or changes?
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved as submitted. I guess we have to do this. I don't think we have any citizens present, but we'll open the citizen comment period. And since no one comes forward, we'll close the citizen comment period. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the order of this evening's agenda?
No, sir.
We have no, these are public hearing items, correct?
Yes, they are. So the first public hearing item this evening is a countywide ordinance amendment, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance to regulate public assembly uses in industrial parks and to modify the definition of place of public assembly.
Thank you, Ms. Worley. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Joanne Hunter, Director of Community Development. Again, as Ms. Worley had indicated, this is an ordinance amendment dealing with public assembly uses. Back in 2015, we did an ordinance amendment dealing with places of public assembly. At that time, Hardywood was beginning to develop in the West Creek Industrial Park. They were going to be having an amphitheater and outdoor events, so we made some modifications to the code to address that. So what that ordinance does and what our current code says is that the code allows places of public assembly as a by right use in M1 and M2 districts if the site is located in an industrial park served by public water and sewer. Those industrial parks that meet this criteria are West Creek, Rockville Commerce, and then portions of Lanier. When we did that ordinance amendment back in 2015, we did add a definition of industrial park, and that talks about how it's a tract of land with planned coordinated uses and zoned for different parcels. So what this ordinance change would do, why we're making this change, is the county has been approached by a large concert venue who's interested in locating within the West Creek Industrial Park. Staff does have some concerns that with this large venue, it's bigger than what was anticipated when we made this change in 2015. So what we're recommending is that a CUP be required for these larger places of public assembly. Would be required. If the CUP was required, it would allow for an additional public review process. It will allow the county to look at things like addressing impacts such as noise, number of events, traffic concerns, and things like that through the CUP process. It also allows for public hearings and public input from our community. So the proposed changes with this amendment include they would only impact the properties that are zoned M1 and M2 that are located in industrial parks. The amendment would continue to allow public assembly uses with an occupancy of 1,500 or less to operate as a by right use. So this would continue to allow places like Hardywood can still have their amphitheater. Midnight Brewery sometimes has events. They could continue to operate. However, what we're requesting with this ordinance amendment is if they're going to have an occupancy of 15,001 or greater, that they would require a CUP. So these would be much larger events, much greater impacts to noise, traffic, things like that, that could be addressed through the CUP process.
I know they are going to be larger, but I think you misspoke. It's 1,501.
Yes.
You said 15, you said 15,000 were on, which would be huge, of course, but just,
I'm having some speaking issues tonight, sorry. The other change is we made really minor tweaks to the definition. Instead of place of public assembly, we're just calling it public assembly, again, trying to make things so that when we go to the zoning rewrite, things will be in alphabetical order, and just some cleanup with that language. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I assume you can't give us any more information about the party that was interested in locating in the park?
We have a pre-application filed. We are working with them to submit some traffic reports. It's a company called Event Makers. They are looking at a site in the West Creek, and they are looking at having very large events, possibly up to about 8,000 people.
Outside events.
Outside
Okay.
concert type
Okay.
events.
What part of the park? Is it in the,
In the
has to be in
southern
the
end.
southern end
Yes.
of the
By
park?
the soccer fields.
By the soccer fields? Okay, thanks. All right, gentlemen, any other questions? All right, we act on motion.
Public hearing.
public hearing
Oh,
first.
Public hearing. We'll open the public hearing. Seeing no one is present, we'll close the public hearing.
I move we approve this as submitted.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor by saying aye. Any opposed? The application is approved, recommended for approval as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your next public hearing item this evening is another countywide ordinance amendment. Ordinance to amend Article 21, Section 18.8 of the Goochland County zoning ordinance to codify an approved plan of development as valid for 5 years.
Good evening, Debbie Bird, Assistant Director of Community Development. This ordinance amendment is to change the length of term that the POD is valid for. Our current ordinance code also states that it's for a 1-year period. It is not in compliance with the current state law in this regard. That says that it should be valid for a minimum of 5 years, so we're proposing to change that to be in compliance. When we went and looked at this, there was also 2 other small tweaks that were brought to our attention that should be cleaned up from the county attorney's office. And we agreed these are things that do make sense. The first one is that it states in our code that any extension shall be applied for within 90 days before it expires. And it was brought to our attention that that meant 1 day before it expired, they could apply, and that's not given us time to look at it and all. So we're recommending changing that to the application for extension should be made at least 60 days before the POD expires. The second little tweak is that the current code says that the POD administrator shall make a decision regarding the extension request. Well, it doesn't say what kind of decision. So we're recommending that that be changed to make it clear and say that they shall approve or deny the extension request. There's a copy of the changes with the code as they would be incorporated. If you have any questions about this change, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, I have one, Ms. Bird. Will the applicant, the holder of the POD, be notified when the term is about to expire?
We currently do not do that, and we have not had an issue with it to date, but it is something definitely that we should consider and would be easy to incorporate into our process.
Yeah.
Usually there are bonds and such that are associated with lots of these, and
Exactly.
they're notified and through that process, but we can definitely make that part of
Yeah,
our
I just wondered,
internal
what,
process.
I can't imagine that they would forget it, but that could occur. It would seem to me to be an easy thing.
And this is only for PODs where they haven't started construction.
I understand.
So,
And-
just so it's not like every POD has some expiration. As long as you build it, you stay there forever. But it is
Exactly.
just in the unusual circumstances where they're not building in 5 years.
But there are, of course, some who will get the POD approved, but then will not pull the trigger. I have some personal experience with that. So, very good.
Okay, any other questions?
Anyone else? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Seeing no one present, we'll close the public hearing. Gentlemen, any further
And we
comments?
recommend for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor by saying aye? Any opposed? The codification is recommended for approval. I think that's a word. Is that a word, Tara?
Yes.
Codification.
It is now.
All right. All right, Ms. Worley, do we have any old business or any further new business?
No, sir?
All right, hearing none, the commission shall rise.
I just realized I forgot to hand out your M1 and M2
I have one point of order about that. The, albino